In December 2023, I shared a Human Rights Watch post because Human Rights Watch found that Israel was using starvation as a weapon of war in Gaza. Today, the court has found that punishing someone for sharing facts about these war crimes is also illegal. I was punished for my critical opinion.
I will order that the ABC pay Ms. Lattouf compensation of $70,000. I will order that the matter be set down for hearing to determine the question of whether the ABC should be ordered to pay any pecuniary penalty, and if so, in what amount, on a date to be fixed.
James Madden is the Australian's media editor, and he's joining me to talk about the Antoinette Lattouf decision. James, how would you characterise this as a day for the ABC?
The whole, from start to finish, the whole issue and event, if you want to call it that, has been just a sorry saga for everyone, possibly including Antoinette Lattouf. I don't think she's covered herself in glory either. But for the ABC, it's been a damaging episode because I suppose it stripped back the curtain to show the panic, the lack of leadership at the top, and the confusion within the ABC about what constitutes acceptable editorial conduct.
Does it seem to you as though anyone at the ABC had read her social media content before they hired her?
Well, if they hadn't read it closely enough, or perhaps they were simply banking on her falling into line. I find it very hard to believe that anyone would have properly vetted Antoinette Lattouf, given she doesn't hide her political views on her social media platforms. But it's clear that her impartiality on this issue, and she's entitled to her opinion, but her impartiality on this issue doesn't sit comfortably with the ABC's charter.
Given that she had been so loud and proud about her views about Israel, is it fair enough for her to be fairly outraged that the ABC dumped her after what she thought was a fairly inconsequential post?
I think she's entitled to feel somewhat aggrieved by the fact that she was let go 3 shifts into a 5-shift contract. The evidence shows she was given very confusing directions by the ABC and management as to what was acceptable and what was not. That said, she should have understood those kind of posts were best left to when she wasn't employed by the ABC. Perhaps.
Yeah, the ABC seems to have assumed that she could read between the lines and that it would be obvious that if you were hired to present the morning show and talk about, as she said, Christmas puddings and cats, that you would not be posting any content about the war in Gaza. But she clearly felt that there was no clear instruction to kind of change her opinions or to hide her opinions. She felt, I would think it suggests, that she was being hired as the whole Antoinette Lattouf, not just a presenter. Is that fair enough in the Instagram age where she's spent a lot of time creating this image of herself?
I don't think it is fair enough. I think Antoinette Lattouf is a smart woman, has been around media organisations her whole professional life. She would have clearly understood what the ABC is all about. Now, whether you agree with her opinion or not is not the point at all. The fact is she took a political position on a sensitive issue, and that is not acceptable at the ABC, full stop.
It would be hard to find an employer in Australia now, particularly in the media, which doesn't have a pretty strict social media policy, that you're not allowed to post things that might bring the organisation into disrepute. Now, that's pretty vague and it's open to interpretation. I think the assumption has always been that the favour would be on the side of the employer. And basically, if they don't like something you're posting, your employment might be at risk. How do you think this judgment changes our perception of that? What is allowed now?
Yeah, it's a thorny issue, and this issue at the ABC has been a massive headache for 5, 6, 7, 8 years now, because for all the edicts that ABC management have put about, journalists have pretty much ignored it. There's dozens and dozens of examples whereby if they haven't been sanctioned, they've been spoken to, journalists, about it, but nothing really seems to happen. I think a point that has to be remembered here is the ABC is the public broadcaster. And with that comes certain obligations, one of which, whether you like it or not, is to be politically impartial on all political issues. That is non-negotiable. It seems that many journalists within the ABC aren't willing to fall into line on that, and either through a desire to virtue signal online or boost their own personal brand. They tend to, draw outside the lines, I suppose, on social media. And the ABC hasn't come to grips with it.
When this happened, the ABC had the very flamboyant Ita Buttrose as chair, and she was heavily involved, emailing Managing Director David Anderson angrily saying this woman is an activist, why did we hire her in the first place? Can't she just come down with the flu and disappear out of my life? But the judge said that he didn't find Ita Buttrose was the key decision maker. How do you think she'd be feeling about that?
Ita made her feelings known within the ABC. She might have not necessarily had her hands on the steering wheel all the time, but it was people were left in no uncertain terms as to her feelings on certain matters, one of which was social media use by staff, as it so happens. And I'm led to believe that Ita hated the way a lot of journalists use social media. So I think the Lattouf thing is quite interesting in that she would have been horrified, not only probably by the posting and the activist nature of it, but by the very fact that social media use had yet again come to the fore when, throughout the duration of her chairmanship, she had fought so hard to clamp down on it.
Her central point was we shouldn't have hired her in the first place. Yep. Was she right about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's no knock on Lattouf. She's, as I said before, entirely entitled to her own point of view on a range of issues, and certainly on the Middle East conflict. But you can't have it all. You're either an activist or you're a journalist at the ABC. Those two things can't cross over. And it's clear from looking at her posts that she takes an activist stance on certain issues, including the Middle East, and that should have been clear to anyone recruiting her.
The judge has granted her $70,000 for non-economic loss. That's less than she asked for. She asked for somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000. And the reason is that he said that while she clearly was distressed at having been sacked and humiliated, that consuming clearly a lot of content about Gaza has also made her distressed. Is it an unequivocal win for Antoinette Lattouf?
Oh, it's a win. The judge has found in her favour, so it's certainly to a certain extent justifies her decision to take this action. Financially, I suppose it will have to wait until the cost judgment. And I see this morning her GoFundMe page has raised more than $200,000 to assist her with her legal case. $70,000 in the context of an unlawful termination, I suppose, isn't a whole lot of money. But perhaps for Lattouf now, her personal brand, if you want to use that phrase, is so well known that she might be able to make the most of some further media opportunities down the track as a result of the publicity of this case.
James, thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire.